So of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
All right, thank you. You left out. How about Devin for the conference?
It's hard to hear.
Okay, go ahead. Think that we have it first.
Can you hear me? Not well. Not well.
I'll speak loudly. Excuse me. I'm gonna read the excerpt. Wow, there it is. Of a story about a teacher. One of our, we all know we're fans of those books. They're our heroes. Each Friday afternoon, Chase's teacher asked her students to take out a piece of paper and write down the names of 4 children whom they'd like to sit next following week. The children know the professor may or may not be honored. There I go. She also asked the students to nominate one student whom they believe has been an exceptional classroom citizen that week. And all ballots are submitted for her privately. Every single Friday afternoon after the students go home, she picks out those the paper as it's in front of her and studies and looks for patterns. Who's not getting requested by anyone else? Who doesn't even know who to request? Who never gets noted enough to be nominated? Who had 1 million friends last week and none this week? You see, this teacher is not looking for a new seating chart or exceptional citizens. She's looking for lonely children. She's looking for children who are struggling to connect with other children. She's identifying the little ones who are falling through the cracks of the classic social life. She's discovering whose gifts are going unnoticed by their peers, and she's putting down right away who is being bullied and who is doing the bullying. As a teacher, parent, and lover of all children, this may be the most brilliant love ninja strategy. It's like taking an X-ray of the classroom to see beneath the surface of things into the hearts of students. It's like mining the gold of being the little ones who need a little help, who need adults to step in and teach them how to be friends, how to ask others to play, how to join a group, how to share their gifts with others. And it's a bully deterrent because every teacher knows that bullying usually happens outside of her earshot and eyeshot. And that after kids being bullied are too intimidated to share. But as she said, the truth comes out in those safe, private little sheets of paper. She explains this as a simple, ingenious idea. How long have you been doing this? Was inquired of her. Ever since Columbine, she said. Every single Friday afternoon since Columbine. Good Lord. This brilliant woman watched Columbine, knowing that all violence begins with disconnection. All outward violence begins in her loneliness. She watched that tragedy, knowing the children aren't being noticed, will eventually resort to being noticed by some way. And so she decided to start fighting violence early and often and within the world, within her reach. What she's doing, she sits in her empty classroom studying those lists, written with those little 11-year-old hands, is saving lives. What this mathematician, the person who interviewed her, learned is that something she's doing that he already knew, even love, even belonging has a pattern to it. She finds those patterns through these lists. She breaks the code of disconnection and she gets lonely kids the help they need. It's math to her. Math. All is love, even math. It's amazing. Jason's teacher, this woman that retired this year after decades of saving lives. What a way to spend life, looking for patterns of love and loneliness, stepping in every single day and altering the trajectory of our world. Teach on, warriors. You are the first responders, the front line, the disconnection, detecting, and the best and only hope we have for a better world. But our teachers do in the classrooms when no one is watching is our best hope, for help to save more children.
Visiting Rotarians, I see, Kate, you're in the back, I think you're an honorary member, so, all right. There's Dan Converse, I see, and Ann Bauer somewhere. There's one way to go. Oh, there you are. And is there anyone else, any other visiting Rotarians? Oh, I'm sorry, they last me. All right, very good. Well, welcome, everybody. And then we have a number of visitors, and Allison, maybe introduce the youngest visitor we have here.
Yeah, Calvin is here. He's busy. He's here.
He's fully engaged in something else, so he could be paying attention to it. Okay, who else? We have other people. Go ahead, Bev. Not yet. No, I didn't. Kelly. Greg. Greg and Mary Millard are here. Okay. Welcome, Ted. Don.
I'm Amanda, you like, all of the four graduates of ABM. High school, fall, row. And she moved back to Grants Pass, they lived in Louisiana for 10 years, Portland for several, and she's. Anyway.
Thank you. Welcome. We had some unexpected visitors. I think Anne's going to invite her, introduce one or two foreign exchange students. So we're going to do that first. Then we're going to go to the program. Then we will do announcements followed by the front remarks and happy. So, Anne, would you like to come up?
Come, Elizabeth. Dan has to be ready. Dan can introduce Jacob. Okay. Dan. You're the Jacob, ready afterwards. We can introduce Jacob. Elizabeth is from the sponsored by the Wednesday Club, and we are so excited to have her. Her first co-parents are two of our Rotarians. Robin.
Okay, I know about this. Be sure this will talk like this. I'm just gonna let her introduce herself. She is from Belgium, and she's gonna tell you a little bit about herself and what it means to be a exchange student here.
Yeah. So my name is Elisabeth. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Belgium, not too bad. I'm very glad to be here. I went already to Corvallis to watch a football game that was amazing with other exchange students. So it's fun to be here. And I can speak about Belgium if you want. So in Belgium, we speak French, German, and Dutch. And I speak French, it's my native language. And we have provinces. I live in the province of Luxembourg. My town is Bastogne. It's very famous because we have a monument about the World War II because of the Battle of Ardennes. So we have a lot of American tourists in my town. And
What are you doing in high school right now?
so yeah, I have different classes. For fun, I have theater, art, chemistry. What I have more. I have algebra, English, US history, and so I yesterday I had tryout to be in the cheerleading team. Yeah, and I will see if I will be in the team this week. Yeah,
Nice. She loves the football game.
yeah, I love going to football games. Tomorrow is the last one.
Yeah. Way better at that than I am. I'm Dan Converse. I'm with the Greater Grants Pass Rotary Club, which meets Friday morning for breakfast. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Jacob Kaminsky. He has Americanized that to Jacob. When he came to us, he had a tan line on his wrist because he had just finished surgery on his wrist. The break happened a long time ago, but it didn't heal right, so he had surgery. He might have hit a punching bag, and what he told me was that the punching bag won. But he also, I had this grand idea that we have 3 Rotary clubs in Grants Pass, obviously, 1 in Cape Junction. And then it would be a great idea if we just got all of the youth exchange people together for a nice social evening. We did it at Trent and Tina Carpenter's incredible home, which is still undergoing landscaping. So I'll let Jacob tell you what happened with that. So, again, my pleasure to introduce to you, Jacob.
So I'm Jacob Kaminsky. I'm from Germany and I'm 16 years old. I'm just gonna tell you about this. So at my next Lee's home, that is the carpenter show. We were playing football with some friends, and it was already getting dark. I didn't see much. We just ran some routes, and at the last point of the game, we would have won if I had caught that. So I was very determined to get it. And then I stepped, I think, into a hole or something. At least, in the end, I fell on my leg, and then yeah, it broke. So. Yes. Oh yeah. That's pretty good because I had surgery 1 day after I went to the orthopedic, so that I was pretty happy because my tibia was broken. Right? No, tibia, yeah. And my joint was moving outwards, and so they had to do it fast because they would have started to heal, yeah, but in the wrong place, yeah. And yeah, so in Germany, I was playing handball and was dancing in American dance formation, and that was one point why I really wanted to come to the US, because on social media I often saw that the sports culture is completely different than in Germany, at least. We don't have American football, and that's why that was the first time I had the idea to come to the US. And after a year or something of talking to my dad about it, he told me about the Rotary Youth Exchange, and I just tried it because I thought it can't be bad to just try. And then I got it, and actually America was also my first wish. One because of football, which actually I couldn't play one game. It was almost a game that I broke my leg 1 week before the game, and yeah. And the other two points were obviously the cultural differences that I wanted to experience, and I think it's pretty important to just learn English for the like good career. So that was my 3 points why I wanted to come to the US. And now that I'm here, I'm pretty happy. I have a very cool host family. I feel very welcome. And I already went on cool trips with my host family and with the other Rotarians and the Rotary Youth Exchange. visitors, yeah. Yeah, as Elisabeth told you already, we were in Colvellos and we went to Crater Lake. It was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
I was just gonna let you know that, he did go with the other exchange students to the football game. Obviously, Oregon State is doing really, really well this year. But last week, we were able to take you to the U of O game to see how football was really played.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to jump right in and introduce our guest speaker today. His name is Joseph Maier. And Joseph from the Public Defender's Office. And you'll be happy to hear he's a doctor through and through, undergrad and law school. We're super happy that he's here today. The program committee had asked folks, who would you like to hear from and see? And someone suggested, I think might have been Jim Huber, could we hear from someone from the Public Defender's Office and hear what's up with that? And Joe and I have had a couple of really good conversations. I'm going to tell you a couple other things about him getting right up here. This is probably the most important thing. He's got one that just graduated college and two in college right now. So that deserves a round of applause. And besides being a public defender, he is a reclaimed wood artist. Has worked as a private investigator, high school wrestling coach. He's been in haying business, retail construction, and mill work, as all Oregonians have been involved. So warm welcome for our guest, Joe Maier.
So I've got a pretty loud voice for being in trial, so let me know if this isn't enough. But anyway, my name is Joe Maier. As Judy said, I lived here since 1995, married, 3 kids. My wife is a librarian. I started out, I went to U of O undergrad, was a business major, thought I was going to be getting an MBA and go on from there. I had an older brother. I'm one of 9 kids, 8 boys. But one of my older brothers said, "Hey, let's go to law school together." And I thought, "What? That sounds weird." But he did. Yeah, he went to University of Washington, and then the next year I decided to follow suit, went to University of Oregon. Graduated. Started off doing. I was actually a corporate lawyer in Seattle, of all places. Wanted to get back to Oregon. I actually was going to be a prosecutor. I thought I wanted to be a prosecutor. I like being in trial and things like that. Jobs are really difficult for that time of the profession. They're not so much anymore. Right? Believe it or not, there's a shortage of lawyers. We thought there could be such a thing. Anyway, so I finally landed a job down here. I've never been here, public defender, and I thought, well, it's basically the same thing prosecutors do, just the other side. It's very similar. And so I took it, and I've been a public defender ever since. I work in the Grants Pass office. I work for Southern Oregon Public Defender. We have an office in Medford, and we have an office in Grants Pass. I'm the supervising attorney here. We have 7 lawyers, 3 support staff. We got a paralegal and a private investigator, and that's our staff. Gonna give you kind of, I guess, a quick rundown because I think it's just kind of public defender 101. Like, what do we do? Why are we here? How does this work? So 6th Amendment basically gives you the right to counsel. And then way back in like 1963, there was a pretty famous case called Gideon versus Wainwright, which said if you can't afford counsel and you're charged with a crime, then you can go to jail or prison. Then the state needs to provide you counsel. Otherwise, it's pretty unfair, and it was unfair for many years. So that's when it started. And in Oregon, in about 1983, I think, for the longest times, counties just did it. So counties would just they were given the idea that they had to provide public defense. So Joe Blow, lawyer who did securities or whatever, hey, you need to take this case for being so the judges just kind of doled it out. Eventually, it became more of a profession for certain specialized lawyers. In about the early 90s, the state took it over from the counties. And Oregon back then did things a little differently, and they still do than most states. Public defense, even as of right now, is not a state-run organization. Public defense in Oregon is private. Every county, like in our county, we have nonprofit, and we contract with the state of Oregon to do the public defense work. And that's how it's been, so like say the early, well, at least in our counties, early 90s, we had a guy that took over, Bert Putney, he was a lawyer in Medford. He took over, or he came up with a bid at the state of Oregon saying, hey, we'll take public defense for X amount of dollars, we'll do X amount of cases. They said, great. We back then, they thought, hey, we're gonna save money, we're gonna privatize this thing. And it's worked pretty well. And in different counties, it's worked better than other counties. I was very fortunate to work for Bert, who was a good lawyer, but even better businessman. And so he did things right. And Southern Oregon really did public defense right, at least in my estimation. Probably better than the bigger counties, and maybe that's the problem, bigger counties didn't do it so well. And so we have this system where, again, what we do every 2 years, we contract with the state, and we say, hey, we'll take the public defense. We'll take X amount of cases, you pay us X amount of dollars, and we figure out how to pay everybody. And what my old boss did was a good job of making sure that the ones got paid. Because what the problem is in public defense is just that, is we don't get, at least historically, paid as well, even as the prosecutors. And so what happens, especially in places like Portland and Eugene, is they just become training grounds. You'll come out of college, hugely in debt, can't afford to be a public defender really for the most part, because you can't pay your bills, but you get trained. You get a lot of trials, and then 2 years later you quit and you go, hang up your shingle and take duties, and make a lot more money. And that's historically what's happened in public defense. And there's still a shortage of public defenders even as we speak right now. But so that's sort of how it's set up. In Southern Oregon, what we do, so our office contracts for what we call the indigent defense. So indigent defense is you're entitled to a public defender if you don't have any money, essentially. You have to be pretty destitute to be qualified for public defender. And interestingly enough, about 90% of people who are charged with crimes are given a public defender. So that kind of shows you that really crime and poverty go kind of hand in hand. And you got to be pretty destitute. If you owe any, if you have any kind of equity in a house or a car, you're usually not going to get a public defender. You gotta pay for your own or represent yourself. But like I say, about 90% in Oregon and probably everywhere, you're entitled to a public defender if you get charged with a crime. What happens is we take a certain amount of cases every month, and then we have the public defender's office. The remainder goes to what we call the consortium group. It's Josephine County Defense Lawyers. They take the overage. They can also take our conflict cases. For instance, if you've got a case with co-defendants, we can't take them both in our office, so one goes somewhere else, one will go to us. And so that's how it's worked for years, and it still kind of is. There's some changes on the horizon. They're trying to put us under the umbrella of the state and have us work for the state. We'll see where that goes. Right now, I can say we're a nonprofit, private, works pretty well. About 3 or 4 years ago, they did a study and they said, hey, you guys are pretty much overworked. You're taking too many cases. You can't take this many cases. So the ABA and some other people came together and said, hey, we're going to have to reduce the amount of cases you can take per year, which is great for me because we do take too many cases. The pay is the other issue, but that was at least the initial issue. So what they did is they reduced the caseload 20–30%. And what that did is it created essentially an artificial shortage of lawyers. If you do the math, all of a sudden I'm doing 70% of what I was doing last year. Now there's a third of a lawyer missing from the system. It doesn't help that public defense is sort of a dying breed in terms of people retiring and younger students. They're coming out of law school with a huge amount of debt. They can't afford to be public defenders, and again, it becomes sort of a training ground. Different counties do it differently, do it better. Like I say, we've done really well here in Southern Oregon for years. We kind of buck the trend pretty greatly in terms of if you go to Portland, you're going to have public defenders who've been doing it 2, 3, 4 years, maybe even a few that are career public defenders. It's kind of the opposite here. My office, I've been doing it for 25 plus years. I've got an attorney next to me that's been here for 30 years in my office, another one 25 years, probably another that's 20 years. We've got a ton of experience. We're gonna have 2 new attorneys, fairly new. So we hang on to people. And again, that goes back to sort of the way we've worked our system. We try to pay well. I don't get paid as well as, a private attorney. Bella knows that, that's my accountant, so I doesn't know how much I made for being a 25 attorney. But anyway, but we can provide some other things. We have a great office, we get along well. There's just things that we can do as a private organization that you couldn't necessarily do as a state organization. So that's sort of how it works. The issue, I think, for most people now is like, okay, so how's Oregon doing? How's the state or how's the county doing in terms of crime? How does this affect me? Those kind of things. One of the things that's happening in the state of Oregon is there's a shortage of public defenders. And I don't know how much of you are aware of this, but there's hundreds of people out there who don't have attorneys. And it's a problem, and it's going to be a big problem because if you don't have an attorney, at some point, you're going to get released. You might even get your case dismissed. That's not great for society, not great for anybody. We have done well here. This is other counties are not doing so well. Grants Pass, Josephine County, we don't have anybody that's not represented at this point. We've got everybody represented. Medford, not so much. Medford's got some issues, but they're working on it. And again, that's our office. There's other reasons for that. But the state is trying to come up with solutions. There's really no good solution because there's a shortage of lawyers, unless they just somehow, create lawyers from the ground. It's just, I don't know how they're going to fix it. We're kind of maintaining. I've got one of the things with our office here. We have a pretty good relationship and always have for the most part with the prosecutor's office. It's not like a lot of bigger places where there's a lot of animosity. We, for the most part, get along pretty well. And in my office, that's one of the things I really stress with my, especially younger attorneys. It's like, you don't need, everybody's a fighter, and to be in this job, you kind of have to be a fighter. It's got to pick your fights and be a good fighter. And I don't like how they don't pick a fight with a prosecutor just because you can. There's got to be a purpose and a reason. It's the same thing with the court. So we have a pretty good working relationship with everybody and the police and everything else. So Grants Pass, I think, and I guess I'll brag on our we do pretty well in terms of representing people. And the question is, what do we do? Well, I represent, like I say, criminal defendants. Any given time, it's less now, but I might have, 50 clients. It goes up and down, and it's, you take people through the system. I don't determine whether they're guilty or not guilty. They tell me what happened. I work them through the system. Very small percentage actually go to trial. The majority of them, it's basically what happened. I kind of mitigate things in terms of, here's what this person did, why they did it. Here's the background, why this maybe isn't a good idea to give them 1 million years in prison. Let's do this instead. And so that's usually what my job is. I'm kind of a glorified car salesman. We're doing a lot of the back and forth. But we do go to trial, and you can imagine, not everybody who's charged is guilty, and so we have trials and do that. And so my job is very interesting. One of the things that I think people don't talk about, it's like we're constitutionally mandated. The state has to pay for public defenders. I always look at it this way. I've been doing this 25 plus years. If you do $1 and cents, like how much they pay me per year, and how much I save the state in terms of pure hard cash, it costs at least 45 grand to put somebody in prison a year. That's not opportunity costs of, that person's not working, that person's not providing for the family, those kinds. Minimum 45 grand. And just one attorney in one podunk town, I've had a ton of cases. I should do the math sometime. I've had cases that go to trial, big cases that you're looking at life in prison, or 10 years in prison, 20 years in prison. And guess what? I've got them not guilty because they didn't do it. And so I've saved, the state, just again, one attorney. I'm again not bragging, but I'm saying that saved literally millions and millions of dollars in Department of Corrections money. Just one attorney. That's not to mention all the cases that, again, I've mitigated in terms of okay, what's best for this person? You know, they did something wrong, let's figure out what they're gonna do, give them X amount of time. Whereas I wasn't representing, maybe get more time. So we are basically a bargain in terms of, you know, saving the state money. And it's not just, I'm trying to get my guy off. What we also do largely is, there's a lot of what we call specialty courts. There's things we can do to try to, I mean, one, they need to be punished if you committed a crime, which also, these people for the most part are gonna be back in our environment and in our community. So the goal is, how can we keep them from not doing this again? I'm the drug court attorney. I've been doing drug court for almost 25 years as well. And you take, what happens in those cases is you get people who are otherwise going to prison. And the only reason they, for the most part, committed the crimes is because of drug abuse and drug addiction. And believe it or not, well, I'm sure you understand it. A good amount of crime is just because of drugs. And so we have drug court, and we graduate people drug court, you know, every year we have a graduation. And I do the math for the judge, and the judge will read up how much money we saved. That person would have gone to prison for 2 years. They did drug court, they're clean and sober, they're with their family, they're doing everything right. And we save the community and the state this much money. So that's one way. We also have a mental health court, which is again a specialty court that is for mentally ill people who are caught up in the criminal justice system. And now we're adding a family court, which is again sort of the same idea. So there's this goal, I guess, not just to get people through the system, but kind of figure out why are they in the system. And you know, as a public defender, I can tell you the majority of people in the system are because of drugs, mental illness, and a combination of those things. There's a good deal of people that are in the system because of two things. So if we can get a handle on those, I can go on all day of how to solve some of the issues and how to solve some of the homeless issues. I won't bore you with that, but yeah, let me bore you with a little bit. As a public defender, and people don't, we were talking about this, Judy and I, just a little bit. You know, I've lived here. Our parks are different now than they used to be. What's going on? And there's not one simple answer. And I'm not gonna, because it's a lot of things. It's housing, it's availability. But as a public defender, what I see largely is drugs. And here's what happens. And this is what I think people don't realize is people say, well, a lot of people in the parks are using drugs. There's a lot of mentally ill. As a public defender, I see them together. And the reason I say that is because I've been doing this long enough. Back in the day, the West Coast was inundated with methamphetamine, way before the East Coast. And methamphetamine is a horrible drug. And what it does, and we're seeing this now, 10, 20 years later, it's some people can make it, some people can get off of it. A good deal of people never come back mentally. I get one attorney in one town. I've probably had 5 to 10 people that I represented as not just methamphetamine possession, when it used to be a crime, not even a crime. And it's like, oh, they use meth, whatever, but they're saying those same people, you give them 10 years, and not everybody does this, but it does a number on your brain, and now they're meth-induced psychosis. They're not even, they don't even qualify for mental illness. It's not a mental illness, but if you and I saw them, you know they're mentally ill. They can't do anything. I've had people so bad to send them to the state hospital because they can't aid and assist, that they don't know what's going on. So there's a process where if they can't aid and assist you, like they don't even know what's going on, we send them to the state hospital. They put them on medications. At some point, they get them back to us when they're able to aid and assist. Very few, but once in a while, you'll get them where they can never aid and assist, which essentially means they have a license to. They'll never be able to aid and assist. So they come back from the state hospital and says nothing to do about it, and the case gets dismissed, and hopefully they don't commit crimes anymore. But I've had 5 or 10 people that fit that category. They're not mentally ill, it's because of the drugs. So I think a large part of what you see, at least on the West Coast, the homelessness is because of our drug culture that we've had longer than most other. I think it's going to eventually get there. And again, this may sound weird coming from a public defender, but you know, the drug policies of Oregon are not helping. People came to me with 110, came out and said, hey, you're a public defender, you're a drug court, you must be really for 110. Ugh. Terrible, terrible law. And I knew it from the get-go. Again, I don't want to be political, but that was terrible. And the same thing with the psilocybin and things like that. And again, I'm pretty libertarian when it comes to criminal law. You know, I punish the crime. But again, I've seen the damage that drugs has done to my clients, to the community. So I think that's a good start. It's just done a number. And I know people in the park that would be fine, but for drug use. So if I can tell you anything, do not take, if you have anybody who's get them clean and sober, because it just gets worse and worse. Anyway, I've rambled on, so just ask if I have any questions. I can be done.
Questions?
Couple. Go ahead.
You mentioned earlier about the overage, case that goes to a consortium. Is that like another nonprofit that does a contract, or no, the old system where it's just?
Yes, it's private attorneys who have their own practice and work for, and they'll do like 10% of their practice is public defense work. So they'll take overage. There's a few of them that's 100% of their profession. But most of them, they'll take 50% and 40%. It used to be kind of just paid the overhead, but they're like family attorneys or divorce attorneys or various, and so they do criminal law too. Yeah, that's how that works.
When they ask questions, would you please repeat them for the
Yes,
people on
yes,
Zoom?
yes.
I've been retired a long time now, that, in Josephine County, is juvenile defense still through JCDL?
The question is, juvenile defense through JPL, which is Josephine County Defense Lawyers, and the answer is yes.
Okay, the more important question though, before I retired, we were getting into restorative justice. Is that a thing in Josephine County, and is that something you support?
It is everywhere. The question was restorative justice and how much is that being used in Josephine County, do I support it? I do to an extent, and restorative justice is sort of this idea where instead of punishing people with jail and various other things, you restore them to. And when I say in part, I agree with it, because I think there is certain crimes. Again, this may sound very from a public defender where they need to go to prison. They need, for the safety of the community, you need to go away. I wish I was the one I could tell you which that's the job of the prosecutor and the judge. So that's there are some of those just because of the crimes and the people you're involved with. I think Oregon does a poor job because what we have is Measure 11, where certain crimes are so heinous you have to go to prison. But a lot of those are first-time offenders, and they really don't need Measure 11. And then you get these other cases where you have to repeat offender over and over and over. And the way the gridlocks work, they don't do a whole lot of time. And to me, that's the one, that needs more time. But anyway, the restorative justice works great, like in a drug court setting. There are certain people, and the DA will recognize and will do an evaluation. There's lots of things we can do. There's these formal things you can do, but there's also just the eye tests. Like, hey, we get this person clean and sober, and they're not going to commit crimes anymore. So restorative justice works really well that way. The other part of restorative justice that I think Dan was talking about too. I remember you, Dan. You were on trial, man, years ago. You had black hair back then. But anyway, I don't know how I remember people when it's really 20 years ago, but I do sometimes. I think because you worked in the court too, so I saw you around. So restorative justice also is sort of this idea that if you wrong somebody, particularly, financially and things like that, you get to know the person and you do the right thing. You make good restitution on those things. And I think that's good because I think as a society, there's this us and them mentality. There's criminals and then there's us, right? Well, it's a humbling experience being a public defender, because when I talk to people in the jail, even the most heinous crimes, I realize they're by the grace of God will lie. Honestly, and again, it sounds kind of, I don't know, but it's true. It really is true. I mean, I read these police reports and then I talk to the person, like, is this the same person? Because this thing is really bad. And you seem like somebody I would, know or grow up with. So it's really rare that I run into the personality, and you do. I mean, we have sociopaths. We have, people who are pretty scary, but for the most part, and especially in Grants Pass, it's changed. I mean, again, back to the drug culture, we're attracting a different kind of element, a different kind of criminal. And it sounds weird, and I don't take it the wrong way, but there's I always call them like our people, the old time, I have some guy from Page Junction. They're not really that bad. They do some stupid things, but it's like, I get them, they're not, but there's this new sort of, you know, I guess I'll blame it on the rest of the United States. They're coming in for the drugs. They got no skin in the game. They don't care about our community. They haven't grown up here. They don't know our values. And they're gonna just ruin it and leave or go to, you know, and there really is an element of that going on. And it's unfortunate because, you know, it just is.
So on measure 110, do you think it can be amended or does it need to be completely repealed?
The question is my thoughts on 110, whether it can be amended or repealed.
And 110 is?
110 is the basically decriminalize most, if not all, drugs, and we all fell for it 2-3 years ago. It was, sorry if I'm offending anybody, but this is just my thoughts again. And again, take it from where I'm at. I'm a public defender. I do drug court, so I have some credibility. The reason, and I didn't always feel like this. I always thought, you know, possessing drugs is a status crime. When I say status crime, there's a lot of status crimes. You didn't do anything, you just possess drugs. If you did something afterwards, that's crime. Status crime is also felon in possession of a firearm. I didn't kill anybody, you're just not supposed to have a fire. Driving while suspended. There's a ton, or failing to register as a sex offender. You didn't do anything, you're just the wrong person. You know, so I kind of don't like status crimes as a criminal defense lawyer because I think there's enough real crimes. And so drug possession is what we call status crime. You didn't do anything. If all you're doing is taking drugs, you're not harming anybody, in theory. The problem is you are, and I guess I took a different approach that we as a society owe it to each other to take care of each other. I don't know. I mean, I draft lines that give you maybe some better arguments as to why drugs should be illegal. What I see, and this is again from my perspective, the only way people get into treatment is if there's something there. It's so difficult. People don't understand how strong addiction is. I'm dealing with young women with kids who are going to take drugs over their kids. That's the strongest bond you can have. If you're doing that, what am I going to do to change that? It's got to be drastic. It's got to be big. And usually, you know, if people kind of want to get treatment, but you never can because that addiction is so strong. So anything you can add to the mix, like, you know what, you're going to go to prison for 2 years if you. We don't have that anymore. If you decriminalize it and you give them a ticket, say, hey, call this number. The mind is willing, but the body is weak. It will never happen. And it has, statistically, it's been an utter failure. Can we do things? Yes. I don't necessarily, and again, this is, I can argue both ways. Because, you know, there's an argument that it shouldn't be a crime to possess drugs. But the way I used to get people into drug court is they got convicted of drug crimes. And those same people are dying. They're just dying. I mean, I know people who, you know, they would have, under no 110, they're in drug court, they're getting help. With 110, they're using and eventually dying. Fentanyl is horrible, and it's killing so many people. It's so under the radar right now. I've had clients, you know, die. I have several a year. So it's bad. And these are people's kids. You know, this isn't, anyway. So I guess my answer is I don't think it can be reformed. And the problem is the way they promised it and the way it came out is something totally different. We don't have, I like to get people into residential treatment in drug court. There's no beds. No beds. I don't know where all the money's going, but it's not there. And that's a problem. And anyway, so that's, I think about it. I'm getting the hook, so. But I got one more. Okay, one more.
As a public defender, you see guilty and you see not guilty.
Yes.
How do you personally
Reconcile that?
I mean, and what do you do about it?
So the question is, what do I do? And this is a question I always get. It's like, you know, if I see people that are guilty, not guilty, what do I do about it? Well, for the most part, if they're guilty, it's working out a plea arrangement. What's an appropriate sentence? If they're not guilty, it's easy. We go to trial and go to there. And unfortunately, I mean, that's not always the case because somebody could be charged with Measure 11, really serious crime. And they probably they might have a pretty big case. Maybe they didn't do it. They might take a deal just because they don't want to go to prison. And it sucks, but that's how it works. And the question is, how do I reconcile it? I mean, I go to trial and I represent what my client's telling me he did. And that, again, I have to separate. I'm not the jury. And so I always tell my new lawyers too, it's like, I put on a trial. And it goes, after I'm done with my closing, I'm done. I can say, how did I do? I can reflect on that. But what the jury does is beyond me. They can find him guilty, they can find him not guilty. I can disagree, and I have, I've had innocent people get convicted. I've had people I probably, if I were a jury, I probably would have convicted them, get not guilty. So my goal is just to represent them, respect them as a person, do what they, for the most part, want done with their case. I'm going to be a counselor and tell them what I think is best. But it doesn't happen as much as you think, where I'm conflicted with what's going on. Jurors are smart. They're going to figure it out, who did what. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. That was fascinating. Years ago, I think we first moved here, and I really wasn't clear on what public defenders do, and it's actually someone in your office, and I asked an attorney who worked there, said, what do you actually do? And I remember she not bat an eye, she said, we defend the Constitution, and I've never forgotten that. So anyway, I want to thank you for the good work that you do in your office. We're going to have announcements next, and then we're going to go to Sergeant Barnes. So if you're making an announcement, brevity is the soul of wit. Can you keep it brief, please? Announcements.
Nice, that was good.
Saturday, 1 o'clock. If you're all interested, there's Bravery Angels Workshop on Families and Politics. It's at the Unitarian Fellowship over on East Street. Just show up, 1 o'clock.
October is portfolio month. We had portfolio days last week. We're holding steady right now at almost 9 cases worldwide of virus, 3 Pakistan, 6 in Afghanistan. So hopefully it will cover the rest of the year. We can actually say that we're even closer to this in Mobile. Last Saturday, we didn't host, but we helped the district foundation dinner in Jacksonville, and I'd like everyone from the club who participated, please stand up, raise your hand. Yeah, thank you. We have to start up to we served the dinner and help with whatever they needed to do. We also got a citation, but I think I'll wait till the next week before she does the stuff. I also want to thank everybody for who showed up to help at the dinner. So thank you.
So as most of you know, we usually have a social on the last Thursday of the month, but this month we're putting it off till Tuesday, Halloween, and we're going to have our social at the Women's Crisis Support Team in the corner of A and 5th Street. It's all club members are invited, their family members are invited, and includes children. We'll be handing out candy to kids in the neighborhood, so we ask that you bring appetizer, finger food, or something easy to eat, not real fingers. And then we'll have prizes for costumes, original, best, scariest costumes, and bring a bag of candy so we can hand it out to the kids. Adult beverages are permitted, so please come.
Hello, I just want to let everybody know that the Glass Forge is having a fundraiser to support our club as well as any monies that might be needed for the mural. In the Navigator, there's a beautiful photograph of a table of, they call them seconds, but there's, if someone puts in an order from the Glass Forge, let's say for 9 pieces, well, they might make 10 just in case something happens to one. So what these are beautiful pieces that are museum quality, but they just have extras. So they're selling everything on this table is being sold at a discount. And all the monies will benefit our club. And not only if you buy one, will you be supporting the club, but they're gonna give you an adorable little blue pumpkin. For free. Hi, one meets from tonight on November 2nd at the Bauer Hotel. The Four-Way Community Foundation is hosting a community spirit celebration, and we are honoring Steve Rowe. And there are very few tickets left. So quick, log on and get them. Go to the Four-Way Community Foundation website, there's a little banner at the top, you can click on the tickets. It's almost sold out, so get in. Thanks.
It's amazing how much stuff is going on in this little town. Jolene, Sergeant at Arms.
I knew you would be here, a little more might be changed there. I've been out of it for 4 days, so you'll get better. Today is National Pumpkin Day, okay? And it recognizes the favorite autumn decorations and food on October 26th. Not only do they make great fall decorations, but the pumpkin also competes with a variety of tasty dishes. October 26th, we're in a frenzy for the pumpkin obsession. We cannot wait for the big November holiday for the pumpkin pie. No siree, we need pumpkin everything. Such as bars, cookies, coffee, cheesecake, pasta, and oatmeal. Pumpkin chunkin', pumpkin patches, festivals, bake-offs, and television specials. And then let's not forget the jack-o'-lantern carving too. The squash is native to America. The oldest evidence of pumpkin-related seeds dates back to somewhere between 7,000 and 5,500 BC to seeds found in Mexico. Within recent years, white pumpkins have become more popular in the United States. The United States produces 1.5 billion pounds of pumpkins, with Illinois producing more than any other state. So who carved the first jack-o'-lantern? Take a guess. Was the Irish. They do everything first. They carved turnips to ward off the devil and evil spirits during the ancient festival of Samhain. Also during Halloween, Irish who immigrated to America brought the tradition with them and found that the pumpkin is suitable for carving. However, carving pumpkins in Ireland has become a modern tradition. And this is also National Mincemeat Pie Day. Irish. It celebrates a 15th century English recipe mixing spiced meat and fruit. Originally, mincemeat served as a way of preserving meat without salting or smoking. Bakers then used the filling to make mince pies. They became a unique part of holiday dinners. So how many the modern recipes only contain fruit. So just try to go out there and find a mincemeat pie with meat in it. Also on this day, on October 26th in 1881, was the gunfight at the OK Corral. It was a 30-second gunfight between lawmen led by Virgil Earp and members of the loosely organized group of outlaws called the Cowboys that occurred about 3 p.m. on Wednesday in Tombstone, Arizona. And then in 1987, World Championship Baseball Series at Sportsman's Park. The Detroit Wolverines of the National League beat the St. Louis Browns of the American League 10-5 in a series played in bitterly cold conditions. Okay, now it's time for Happy Bucks. So who has Happy Bucks? No, I can come to you also.
Okay, I pinned Happy Bucks for our presentation today. I hope we get to have the foreign exchange students back for a longer period of time for the presentation and questions. But I really enjoyed the presentation and all the questions that people still have. Amazing. And my daughter just closed on a house. She bought. Somebody else has their hands up.
as Kirk said, I think we would work fully again. And, Rotary is behind the effort to vaccinate all the children in the world and eradicate the disease worldwide. We here in Grants Pass would be lucky too, because, not on Wednesday, but last Sunday, I went to Rite Aid and got all 3 of my vaccines for this season. So, we're blessed to be in a country where we have access to vaccines that can help you avoid weekly disease and lifetime disease. So, I'm putting my $3 into the Bauer Plus. Anything else?
I have some happy thoughts to say hello to Calvin, our youngest, newest potential Rotarian, who I've only ever met before on Facebook. Hi, Calvin, I'm here on TV. And also because I thought our speaker was so good today, and I agree with the notion that there, but for the grace of God, do I think of, the one glass of wine too many, or the things that happen in life. And so I thank him for his work and dedication, and it's really important for our community. Okay. Well,
I would like to say for people who have never been affected by polio, you don't understand the debilitation that can happen. My dad, when he was 16 years old, contracted polio, and they said he'd never walk again. So he managed to learn how to walk again, but he walked with a bad knee and a dropped foot. Polio is real and it can be fixed. It can be eradicated.
Thank you. Like I said, it's been another great meeting, and thanks for everyone for contributing, because everyone takes a club to put on a club meeting, and it seems like we pull it off every week. We have a great program, so I'm just happy to be here, and thanks again.
And I think we have to draw the cards.
Where's that?
Where's the basket for the cards?
Right there.
Okay, so we're gonna go off the left.
You just might have to pull a bunch.
Well, first of all, I know which card to buy.
That's what means on it.
Okay, is everybody ready? It's the 10 of spades.
Thank the students for coming and talking to us, and thank you, Mr. Maier. That was fascinating. And in the spirit of the holiday that's coming up next week, Halloween, I thought we should hear the thought for the day should come from some witches. However, these are not any ordinary witches; these are Shakespearean witches. So this is from Macbeth. I've always liked this quote: "Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn, and cauldron bubble. The lay of a finished snake in the cauldron boil and bake, eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blind worm's sting, lizard's leg and owl's wing, for a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell rock, boil and bubble." Happy Halloween.